loud.
It is now.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to our first finance interest group. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so you're asking, where did I find the municipal budget?
Yes.
So I do a search for Kansas municipal budgets, Kansas, and it's the Department of Administration. It's municipal services. This is their homepage. And then they have the municipal budgets. And as Laura said, this should be showing everything related to 2022, but it's not yet. So who knows? They're a little bit behind. But you can click on municipal budgets and you can get to all of the counties. You're in Elk, right, Sue?
No, Greenwood.
Greenwood. Okay, sorry. I know you're over there somewhere. That's where I am right now. Okay, Greenwood. And then this will show, I think this is kind of interesting. It's not just cities that have budgets. The townships have budgets, the rec commissions have budgets, the schools have budgets, the cemetery districts, the water districts. For our libraries in Linwood and Lynn County, they are library districts, sort of like a cemetery district or a water district. But for city and townships, it's either the township that is your funding authority. They're the ones that are gathering the taxes on your behalf, or you're part of a city. So Fall River City right here. So I can open your worksheet. And this is the certificate that will eventually be updated to give the actual valuation in November. And there's the library. Do I have a pointer? How do I do a little pointer?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Yeah, do a little mouse thing. There you go. So there's the library. And your budget expenditures are at 3,000, but the amount of tax that you're asking for is only 1,756. So I'm kind of curious. I want to come look at your budget pages. We can ignore that one, but you'll see this is kind of just interesting because this is what the city is levying, $28,000, but they get to take out the library because the library is a pass through. The library's money is not the city's money. The library's money is not the township's money. It's your money. They're just gathering it for you. We can ignore that. We can ignore that. We can ignore that. We can ignore that. So a lot of this has to do with the city, not with you. This one, we don't want to ignore this one. This is very important. So this is the worksheet, the state grant and aid. So what we're looking at is, so this is all for last year. This is how much tax was raised on behalf of the library last year. And this is how much tax the library board said they needed to raise for this year. Well, it's off by $12 right there. So the library board asked for $12 less than the year before. You can't do that, so that you don't qualify there. But there's a second test, and the second test is let's look at the valuations. So let's look at our house prices, our house values. Your house values in Greenwood County went up. So good for you. And so having the exact, you needed to, your levy went up by a little bit. So even though the 12, it's like, you remember how I said it's kind of a balance at one of those other worksheet things. It's the dollar, if your allocation, not allocation, tax assessments. If your tax assessments go up, normally the mill rate can go down. So that part confuses me a little bit. But anyway, you qualified for state aid. But we want to come here. This is the library budget page. And again, I'm going to expand this a little bit so you guys can see it. Is that readable?
Yes.
And Sue,
Yes.
look there. The first issue, and this is something we already talked about with hers. See how at the end of 2020 there was $1,000 that was in the city's bank account.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, I wonder why that was. So you might want to talk to your city clerk and say, why is there carryover?
Okay.
You probably shouldn't have carryover. And then the other thing that we'll see is, again, like with Kincaid, your city budget, which is not your internal budget, your city budget is just taxes and that one line, appropriation to the library for $3,160.
Okay,
The city doesn't care about your itemized budget. When I was in Tonganoxie, my city manager would get so frustrated because I would give him too much information. And he was like, just tell me how much tax you need. That's all I care about. I just want to know how many tax, you know, what are your taxes? How much tax do you need? So I learned to go, okay, well, here's our lovely budget because, you know, I want to be transparent, but here's just how much we need. So I gave them both. And that worked for me. It made me feel like I wasn't hiding anything from them. But at the same time, he knew what number he needed to plug in to this to solve for X, as she says. But this, yeah, we might need to talk to your clerk. Your clerk is next door to you, right?
no, but she's just down the street.
Oh, just down the street. Okay. So you just might ask her if they're doing this on purpose, or do they think that this is a cushion that they're holding aside for you, or is this their way of keeping the taxes lower? Because basically what they're saying is they're raising $3,160 on your behalf, and I don't think that's your budget. That's not. Is that what you're expecting in tax funds? Like if you were to pull up your internal budget and you have the income tax line, what does it say? It's probably not $3,160.
Probably not.
Okay. So we need to get this for everybody for 2022. So everybody is starting the budget process for 2023, knowing what's going on for 2022. Okay. All right. And I think you gave me all your stuff. Fall River, yeah, you gave me all your stuff, not electronically, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. And welcome everybody again. So this is our first interest group, and it's basically just a Q&A. So I want it to be a discussion about all things finance. If you guys have questions, for the folks that are in Apple, this was the month that we had Laura Devon do her A Tale of Two Budgets workshop and her other budgeting workshop that she does. So in case people had questions about that, I wanted to be available to answer them. In response to some of that training because I sat in on it, so I got her training again too. There's some things that after looking at everybody's budget as part of the allocation process, which was really exciting and I really enjoyed that, there are some things like we just discussed with Sue and Jennifer at Kincaid that we need to make sure we might need to do differently when we're presenting our budget to our city or township. So if you guys have questions, you can either just raise your hand and we can go through them as a group, or the one thing I do have on that Jennifer's requested is a discussion of side budgets or like a collection development budget, so we can determine if for library. Well, first, I want to congratulate all my libraries that have a book budget, because not all of you do. And I was really impressed that some of my smallest libraries have significant book budgets. So kudos to you. But for middle-sized and larger libraries, you know, maybe we have several $1,000s in our book budget. How do we want to divvy that up in a way that's fair? And so looking at circulation statistics and then kind of going, okay, well, we have $1,000 and my adult books are 50% of my circulation. Does that mean that 50% of my $1,000 goes to adult books? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so that's one thing we'll talk about. Are there other things we want to add to our little mini agenda? You can put it in chat if you want.
I am going to be sharing in the chat shortly after I make sure that it works. A link to the form to sign up for interest group mailing lists, so that you can stay in the loop. if there's an interest group that is not meeting at regular intervals, you'll be privy to that planning, scheduling process, and all of that business. So keep an eye on the chat here in a minute. I'll let you know when that goes up.
Yeah, and just again to remind you that we've decided that for these interest groups, for each hour of FaceTime with us, you get 0.5 CEs. So make sure that you put your name and library in the chat. Cynthia, yes. Wow, Cindy.
Okay. Oh, you can call me Cindy. Anyway, a couple of things. One is, how do we address the carryover on our budget? What do we call it? What account does it go in? I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
And another thing you might address if you have time. How many separate accounts do we need to have? For instance, when we got new computers a couple, 3 years back, we started putting $200 a year aside, thinking that that would give us, $800 if we needed new computers, because we didn't get all new ones. But do we need to have a separate account in the bank to put that $200 a year in, or whatever it may be?
Okay. I'm going to start with that one first, because this was addressed by Laura in her program, in the workshop that we did yesterday. You don't have to have a lot of accounts. The recommendation is if you and your board have passed a resolution and you created a capital improvement account, and I would recommend that everybody do that, because you can do it with a simple resolution at a board meeting. That account should have its own, your capital improvement fund should be in its own bank account. And ideally, it should be an account that makes some money. That's where you're going to sock away you can sock away up to 10% of tax funds and 100% of non-tax funds, except allocation, but I'm going to work with the board. I think that we need to change that. At Iola, we're going to change this. Right now at Iola, we have a checking account for the general fund, a checking account for allocation, a checking account for special funds, and a checking account for state aid. That's 4 accounts that Vivian has to spend time reconciling. There's no reason for that. Allocation can go into the checking account that's general fund. State aid can go into the checking account that is general fund. The special funds, I'm fine with keeping it separate. You don't necessarily have to. Special funds for us is the fund that we put in non-tax, non-SEK, non-state money. So we got $5,000 from a trust, goes into the special fund. We got $160,000 bequest, we put that into a money market or a CD so it could make money. But that's not tax, that's like off the budget because that's gifts. So it's cleaner and easier to keep that in its own bank account. And that way, if you're buying something with that grant money, or you're buying something for the library that's not a part of your budget, you're never touching your general fund money. You're not touching that pot of money. You're just using this special funds or capital improvement fund account. And that just keeps it a little bit cleaner. But if you do decide that you want all of your state aid and all of your allocation and all of your general fund money to be commingled, you have to account for it in your reporting. You and your treasurer have to make sure that our state aid came in, it was $100, and we spent that state aid on books. Here's the order from Baker and Taylor for $105. That entire amount of state aid is associated with that one check that we wrote for all these books. That way you can truthfully report to the state that here's how we spent these funds, and we spent them within the guidelines. Same with allocation. Your allocation follows the same rules as state aid. So rather than have a allocation checkbook where you're writing a check or sending, this is what we do at Iola. And again, Vivian, we have a bill from Baker and Taylor for, $500. It'll get paid with 2 different checks. One from general fund for $250 and one from the allocation fund for $250. If I was Baker and Taylor, I'd be like cussing me out. That's not needed. But you do need to account for, or just make sure that you're matching up the income and an expense in a way that proves to the state that you've used all of your tax money, right? That's the other big thing. That will get into the carryover, because carryover is not, in theory, carryover is not tax money, because we are supposed to spend all of our tax money. And I lost my train of thought. But okay, so that's it for bank accounts. Does that make sense? Okay, make it easy on yourself is my thought. And so we're doing some major shifting in how Iola is doing its finances. So we'll be able to I'll be able to take my own advice. And then for carryover, carryover is necessary because we have bills in January. We need to make sure the lights stay on, and we need to pay payroll in January. So carryover is the difference in the income that you brought in, what you spent. So usually you budget low for income and you budget high for expenses. Give yourself that cushion. And then the carryover, again, the carryover is in theory going to be allocation, state aid, donations, anything other than tax funds. And that carryover, you have to pay attention to it when you're doing your budget, because it will diminish or decrease the amount of tax revenue that you need. If you so say your budget is, your total budget's $10,000. No, I'm going to use a smaller number. We're going to say it's really small. Your total budget is $5,000, and because of all the grants that you got last year, you underspent your budget by $1,000. So you would carry over that $1,000, and so you'd be starting the next year plumb by $1,000. And if your expenses stayed the same, if you still only need $5,000, then instead of asking for $5,000 in tax money, you only need to ask for $4,000 in tax money. So it could be that the 2 tests that we were showing, that you might have a reduction in the dollar amounts, but depending on your valuations in your community, your tax levy might go up. Or you might have to just write a waiver to the state to say, because of this grant, and this grant, we carried over this amount, and now we just needed less tax, and we don't anticipate that this will be an ongoing problem, and we'll be back to needing the full $5,000 or the full local financial effort. That's the key. We need to show that our community is continuing to support us with appropriate taxes. And that's what the state is looking at. They're looking for communities where, 1 year your city's giving you $1,000, and then they're giving you $750, and then you're giving you $500, and then they're going to give you $250. That can't happen. You can't sustain a library if your local community is cutting your taxes year after year after year. So that's why state aid is so important. Okay, Diane, you asked, would you have an Excel or Google spreadsheet set up that would be easy and clean for that? Yeah, we can create that for you. And it's going to look a lot like the report from the state. Let me share screen again real quick. Diane, you are in Bourbon County. Let me go pick on you. Whoops, not Barton. Bourbon. And Bronson. Ooh, yours is still in Excel. Fancy. Sorry, that's everybody's allocation. General detail. Nope. Yes. Where's I'm looking through all these different spreadsheets and I want to find, there we go. There's the, so we can ignore debt service. And there is the library. And oh, Moline, I'm confused, sorry. Diane, which county are you in? Guys, where's Moline? Is that an Elk?
Yes.
Haha, found it. Okay. I get my D's mixed up. Diana and Diane. All right. So now I want to come back and find, I'm looking through all these. There we go. That one. City of Moline Library Board. Okie dokie. Good. This looks good too. So the way the spreadsheet will just be exactly like this. This would be 2020. 2020 is going to be prior year actuals. Actual versus estimate versus proposed. Actual is you're looking at the end of the year of 2020, that financial report that hopefully you have that says this is exactly how much income we brought in as of December 31st. And this is exactly how much money came out and what we spent it on at the end of 2020. And for this budget and for the city, you just care about the taxes. Just the tax dollars. Pretend like the tax dollars are, you know, super sparkly special funds. And you just care about how much tax money came in. And like I said, in theory, this number, this total receipts should match. So I don't know, again, why the city of Moline didn't give you all of the tax money that they raised for you. But because this should always be, in theory, this should always be zero. But on your regular account, we will do this and we'll expand it. So your budget would have all of these lines as your income and a line for allocation and a line for fines and a line for the friend's gift that you know you're going to get, those kinds of things. And then instead of just expenditures, contractual services, which is a weird thing to put library services under, but that's okay. You would have salaries, employee benefits, utilities, all of your expenses. And usually I'd say what, by October, November, we can in theory say that we have spent all of this money. So then we can say, we spent all of our tax funds. And then there will be no carryover of tax funds. The carryover, the difference between this income and this expense is the carryover. And that's the cash that will get you through. I usually try to budget, I mean, I budget that in. I keep track of that and I say, I know that I need 3 payrolls that have to be covered. And I know that in January, I have like 3 subscriptions that come due that I have to pay for. So I pay attention. I look at my January bills and I go, okay, usually in January, I need to set aside, well, for SEK, I need to set aside $250,000 because of allocations, you know. So I need to know what my January expenses are going to be and make sure that there's enough carryover. Carryover is the money in the bank, that there's enough money in that bank account to pay those bills. Does that make sense to everybody? Like that's exact, I mean, that's what carryover is. And that's why it's important to have it, but you also need to, you need to have that amount in mind because maybe you can lower your taxes just a little bit. You know, what if are you a library that has a cap, a charter ordinance mill levy cap? You know, what are you going to do to make sure that you stay under that? So we will take this sort of document and I will put it in Google. So, oh, there's, see, okay. I'm gonna catch up on the chat real quick, just a minute. Jennifer Caney, I have a cap on my budget. I would like to know how to figure according to the city assessment, so I can do that and request it. Okay. Roger has the math on his budgeting PowerPoint presentation. Math is not my thing, but I can do Excel like a mad woman. So we'll figure out, I'll get something on Excel. It's a mill is 0.001 of the assessed valuation. So if your assessed valuation is $1 million, meaning that's the value of all the houses in your county, then 1 mill would be 0.001 or whatever that would be. What that's math. Don't make me do math. That's $1 million, right? Times 0.001. So 1 mill is worth $1,000. You need $5,000. Then you need 5 mils. So if you know what your assessed valuation is and you can see what 1 mil is, and then you can take that 1 mil and multiply it by what your cap is, you can determine how much money you might be able to get. Assessed valuations come in 2 versions. Early in the year, you get the estimates of the assessed valuations. And then in November, you get the actual numbers. And if there's some sort of national catastrophe or something bad happens, or, who knows, if we have an economic downturn, that can be very different. So the final numbers in November, when the county or the city certifies that budget, we need to find out that information from our city or township and make sure that the budget that we put together in the spring and approved in the spring is still going to work for us for the next year. Jennifer, I'm going to, I'll put together, when we do the spreadsheet, I like the idea of doing a spreadsheet to help with carryover and a basic budgeting spreadsheet. I'll put that formula in that spreadsheet. Does that work?
That'd be fabulous.
Okay, cool. So I'm making my to-do list.
I also need to figure out how do I find out what the assessment was, because I called the county treasurer and she sent me all the paperwork for the 2022 budget, but I'm not sure exactly where to find
This
the
valuation.
assessment.
Okay, just a minute. It would be. It's not on this page. Where is that page? Did she send you the spreadsheet, like with all of the, or did she send, oh crap, sorry. Give me just a second. We just had that really nice Bronson. Diana, I'm going to pick on you whether you want to be picked on or not. If your treasurer or clerk sent you this spreadsheet that is their full budget, then we need to get to, it's not the certification, is it that? No, budget inputs. I should know this, but you guys are so patient. You'll let me dig through this until I can find it. Summary, I think it's a summary. There we go. You want to look for this page, the notice of budget hearing that has the summary. It'll have what the assessment amount is, and I think it is. Where is
Okay.
it? No, that's not it. Where did it go? I'll find it.
Is it budget authority for expenditures?
The budget authority for expenditures is how much tax money they're raising for you in total, and so that's how much tax money you can spend, period.
Okay, I did, it looks like that's according to the assessed valuation, but I wasn't sure.
The assessed valuation is going to be like millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's like I think 8,632,446. So it looks like.
Yes, that is your assessed valuation. So 11.69 mil of that 8 million gets you
Okay, I'm terrible at math too, so
We're not in libraries because of our math skills.
exactly.
Let me find the library. There we go. Debt service library thing again. Okay. Yeah. So when Laura does this training and she says that this budget and what the city is doing is solving for X, when you or the board says we need $9,546 in tax funds, the first thing that the city does is say, well, okay, we're going to anticipate that you'll get about $500 in delinquent tax, and you're going to get about $1,600 in motor vehicle tax, and here's some of these other taxes. So that means even without having to levy an ad valorem tax, we're going to expect $2,239 in tax funds. The difference between that and what you need is $7,307. So the city needs to levy taxes to to raise $7,307. Now that's not right, but that's just telling you different bills. So they will total tax. Yeah, is that really? Maybe that is their total tax levy amount. Where in the world is this assessed valuation? My apologies. I should know where this is, and it's not coming to me. It's not on this page. Ah, there it is. Look, found it. So yeah. So were you able to find this page then on the information that they gave you for 2022?
Yes, and actually, I have the notarized seal from the clerk what the final budget is.
Okay,
So,
good
yeah.
deal. So you're in a good place to start.
yeah, I just need to figure out how to do the math.
Yeah. And Diana, look, you got the $1 more. And even though your assessed valuation went down, your mill levy rate went up just a little bit, so that you're getting the same amount of tax dollars. So that's good. I'm going to make allocation go away and make that go away and make that go. Oh, hi, everybody. Okay, so we will add to-do list mill generator to draft budget. Okay, let's see. So we got that, and we got that, and Moline, yep. They hold to pay utilities. Oh, so that's sort of in kind. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Diana, we got more money this year because of delinquent taxes. It'll just reduce your tax. So Diana said that they received more in delinquent taxes that may reduce the amount of tax you need this year. Or you can just say that if you got more in tax money, then in theory you spent less of your allocation. Or in theory you spent less of the gift money that you got. Again, you want to be able to tell your funding authority that, thank you for that delinquent tax. We needed it and we spent every cent. Yeah, so back to this. Where's the page? Is that the library? Yes, okay. The way that Laura explained these three columns, the actual, like I said, the actual is true. It's true, it's factual. This is exactly what we spent that year. The current year, that's where we are now. So for your 2021 budget, this for your estimates for the 2021, your delinquent tax, instead of being 204, is going to be whatever you're estimating that it's going to be. So, and again, these are just estimates. So this is your best guess. And then looking into the future with your crystal ball for the next year, these are your hopes and dreams for your budget and the money that you need from your funding authority to run the library. So my hope would be that if you did get extra delinquent tax, that when you do your year-end estimates, you'll increase this, what would be this $10,000, you'll increase your estimate of your expenditures to be in line with that. And if it's too, yeah, I'm going to pull up your budget here in a little. I'm going to look more closely at that. The other thing that sometimes they'll do you see this down here where it says delinquent rate comp 6%?
We're not
They-
seeing the shared screen.
Oh, I don't have a shared screen.
Oh, okay. When you're referring to things, you're saying, do you see this? And we're thinking, no, I don't.
So I don't have my screen shared, and I'm a
No.
dork. I'm a dork. Sorry. All right, there we go. You're seeing the Moline budget page now, yes? Okay, thank you. Total expenditures down here. Delinquent rate 6%, $498. They padded the budget to anticipate some additional carryover funds. So that means that if you do get additional delinquency funds or delinquent tax funds, you can spend them. That increases the authority that you have to spend. Does that make sense? So I'm going to double check your budget, Diana, but I think you'll be okay. You'll just be able to spend, in theory, have spent it last year. Okay, let's make that go away. And let me get back here to the chat and oh. Okay. Yeah, so they should be able to, your city or county clerk should be able to give you your evaluations. As Jerry said, you can just call. Yeah, okay, sorry guys, you told me that a while ago that I needed to. I was too busy talking to read the chat. From December? Oh, did Roger do a presentation in December and it's not on the sekls.org site? Jennifer, is that what you're referring to?
I think I watched it on the YouTube site.
And it was Rogers?
Yeah.
Okay. Because he did one in April or May that I was able to sit in on as well. So yeah.
Maybe
will-
it's what you presented again in December, Sharon. When we met.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry, I'm off a year. Yeah, those should already be up on
too.
SKLS. But if I think the presentation is, if the slides aren't, I will go find them and add them too, because they do have that how to the math. It tells you how to do the math. Okay, so Amy did that, and oh, I'm caught up. Okay. All right. Do we want to talk about collection development budget real quick?
I do.
Okay, cool. So the for me, the way that makes it easiest is pull the report from Koha or from your ILS and kind of get a breakdown. Usually it's adult books, adult materials, juvenile materials, or you can do print materials, adult print materials, juvenile print materials, and then all of your AV maybe for a smaller library, if you do DVDs, if you do audiobooks, and then also if you have, if you set aside money for Hoopla, then those are going to be your expense lines for a sub budget of collection development. And then you can see, you circulated 10,000 books in the year, and you can see what the percentage is. You just take the, we circulated, I am still screen sharing, yes. So I can do a new spreadsheet. Okay.
Oh,
What else do you guys buy? Oh yeah, Hoopla. Does that pretty much cover it for a very basic collection development budget? Okay.
So I have a question. Is
Mhm.
there any report that you can do that will show you, like we do cake pans and puzzles and
Mhm.
large print and stuff? Is there any way I can run a report like that so I can say, okay, out of my 12 months of buying, this month I should spend this much on anime and large print,
Okay.
and then see what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. So in Koha, you would probably do a report that is going to be circulation by shelf location. Shelf location will be adult large print, juvenile picture books. That'll give you that extreme granularity, so you can see exactly what the circ is for each section of your collection. And sometimes, you'll look at that and it'll be, you only have, a dozen games, and so their circulation is 0.001% of the total. So sometimes that can be helpful, and sometimes it's not very helpful. But yeah, so we could do adult fiction, adult nonfiction, adult large print, I think is actually, because large print's more expensive. And then again, you can do child picture books, child easy readers, juvenile, and maybe teens. So that would be some of your book budget. You look at your total circulation. Usually your children's picture books, in my experience, like blow everything else out of the water, which makes sense. A family comes in and they'll get 5 picture books for one juvenile fiction book or one adult book. 250, 300, and okay. So that's going to be your total circ. 2,600. Then let's say, well, what percentage of that? What 500 of my 2,600 is what percentage? And again, you can do the number of circs divided by the total. And this is a cute little, this is an Excel trick, B10. And because I put those dollar signs, so $B, $10, I can, I'm going to pull down this formula and replicate it, and it will always use B10 as the divider. So then I can pull that down. And those are like, ugh, those look too much like numbers. I want to put those into percentages. So I use the little percent sign. Okay, so that at least tells me, just as I expected, picture books are almost 40% of my circ. So now let's say my book budget is $1,000. I'll make that money. There we go. So it's $1,000. What would the dollar amount be for adult fiction? I'm going to take that percent. I think I'm doing this right. Multiply it by, yeah, And I think I want that to be D10. D10. Yep. Okay, so 19% of $1,000, or the adult fiction portion of the book budget, would be $192. So
Thanks.
if I did a straight, just based on circulation, this is what my annual book budget would look like. I tend to rob from children's picture books and put it back up into the adult collection, usually into adult nonfiction. But that's up to you. There's nothing wrong with, having it be across the board, but sometimes that just means that your children's picture books kind of balloon. But is this what you were hoping for?
Yeah, it gives me a basis to run on, because I'm adding so many different things this year, and they've voted to buy a circuit too, so I'm needing to add like vinyl and stuff in there, and so I'm trying to figure out how to do it all.
Oh, the
with-
Cricut. Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys, that I don't. The other thing that you might want to add to this budget or put it outside of the budget are those supplies, which is the Mylar, the like you said, the vinyl for the Cricut, barcodes, things like that. So that is part of your collection development budget. And when you know how the state has a recommendation or a state standard of 12% of your overall expenditure should be collection development. Supplies count as collection development. I would argue that a portion of your COHA fees count as collection development, plus books, plus the in Pennsylvania, we were able to argue that a portion of our internet bill counted towards collection development because people were able to access the catalog online. So that
Okay.
what defines that 12% can change and grow a little bit. And do you guys want me to put this as a tab on this sample budget work thing that I'm going to try to put together in Google?
Yes, please, if you would.
The collection development sub-budget. I mean, and for those of us that have staff, we kind of have to do this, something similar to this. And usually the first step in developing your budget is looking at staff costs, because staff is at least 65%, usually more, of your overall budget. So start with your, start with your people, start with the people, and then build the budget from there. And for the single librarians and for the solo librarians, start with yourself, because there wouldn't be a library without you. So no need to martyr. Okay, cool. Diane, yes, please. And how do you budget for, wait a minute. Oh, collection development is part of the overall budget. So this line right here would be, so this would be like sort of your sub budget. Your overall budget, you would have your income up here. Tax A, tax B, tax C, which we've talked about. You need to have in your budget all of your different taxes, and then your allocation and your state aid and your miscellaneous. Okay, and then down here for your expenses, you'd have your salaries. I see on a lot of you guys, you put taxes as your, and I was like, taxes, what, why are you paying? And then I realized it was your FICA. So often you'll see that as an employee benefits. Because so that's the, I can't spell. Okay, there we go. And then this would be collection development. And that would be $1,000. Okay, so all we're doing with this little sub budget is deciding how we're going to divvy up that overall budget. And then we can use this. The other thing that I would do is give yourself, so this is the annual. What would be the monthly? I would take the annual and divide it by 12. So I can buy I can buy 1 book a month. I can buy 12 books for adult fiction. I can buy a half a book. So I can buy 6 books a year. Every other month I can buy an adult fiction book. Large print are $30. So it's going to take, 4 months before I can buy 1 large print book, but I can get 2 children's books per month. Does that make sense? And it could be that that doesn't work as well for you. So what if we were to do it quarterly? Would that make more sense? So we're going to take the annual and we're going to divide it by 4 because there's 4 quarters in a year. Maybe this would make more sense for a small library. 4 times a year, I'll do a big book order, and here's what I can afford for these different areas. What's 7%? Make it 10%. The other thing that you'll want in your expenses as expense lines, along with your collection development, definitely utilities. You'll want your probably your COHA fees. You might want internet as its own because of E-rate.
Courier fees?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. The courier is the other big thing that you guys have to pay for. Okay. And again, for the expenses, these are things that you're going to want to track. These are things that you're going to want your board to be aware of if they fluctuate up or down in some big way. Some of you have also put in the bond, your treasurer's bond you put in here to show that it's something that you have to pay for every year. So the expenses vary depending. Okay. I thought I saw another question.
Hey, Sharon,
Yes.
this is Diane. Sorry. I'm
Okay. Oh, there you are. So I knew I saw something. I'm like, I thought so. I went to chat. Sorry. Yes.
What I was meaning was within your regular collection development. Since we're adding so much more to like the one section, like mine's going to be for children's, and so that's that doubles my overall budget pretty much. But I still spend, because this is an off year, but I still spend the same amount on what we normally do every year, and then spend plus the $1,500 into the children.
Yeah, I would. So that $1,500 that you got from the competitive grant for collection development you're absolutely right. That's outside of the budget. So that means that on a year when you have the collection development budget, you can spend the $1,000 that you had budgeted, which I think you should, and you get to enhance it. Because your collection development grant was targeted, right? So if your collection development grant was for children's books, then you're still on the hook for adult books. You still need to buy improve your adult collection or buy books for the adults. Does that make sense? And I would, when you're doing a monthly financial report for the board, you'll have your income and your expenses. That I would even just say, grant projects, income, expense. Have it be separate. Don't be very careful to not commingle be careful not to lose track of the grant funds. So if we got an ARPA grant, we need to make sure that we're keeping separate the income from that grant and the expenses that are associated with that grant. Because for some of us, that money did carry over, but that's a carryover that doesn't impact our budget. So that's going to be tricky for some of us. So we're starting the beginning of 2022, and I have I got, you know, I got $10,000 from ARPA, and I've only spent 8,000 of it because I can't get the technology that I need. I have a carryover of 2,000 that's in the bank account, but that doesn't count towards carryover because it's earmarked. It's money that I can only spend on certain things. So I would try to keep it separate. It's complicated. We got lots of little things that are moving parts, especially because of ARPA. But yeah, I would keep your grant project income and expenses separate or accounted for separately.
Is there a simple way to have all that? Because I'm giving the board like 5 different sheets because I'm also doing like the grants with all the grants that we received this year. Plus I have our regular. Is there a cleaner way to do all that?
Send me what you have. Let me look at it and we'll see what we can come up with.
Thanks.
And it might not be able to be clean. The financial report that goes to Iola, because, you know, I said how allocation is kept in its own bank account and state aid is kept in its own, it's like 4 pages. They get a lot of information, but we'll see. It could be that we can consolidate it. Because, you know, you could do grant projects, income expense, grant A, grant B, grant C. Yeah. I don't know, maybe, or we'll have to do them separate. I don't know. Let me look and see what you have, and then I'll come up with a suggestion. And Reggie, are you finding this helpful, even though you're a district library?
Yes, because it's still hearing things that it makes it click better.
Okay, good deal. And Jerry, are you do you start with, because you have probably more staff than I have at Iola. Do you start with salaries and with benefits and with, well, for those of us that provide insurance, health insurance for our staff, that's usually one of the first things we have to look at is how much is our insurance going to go up? It's, you know, 30% increase is like, oh, okay.
Unfortunately, my insurance goes up in May, so
Yeah.
I have to guess. I have a formula that I've created based on past years, and I try and look and see on the internet if anybody in the government is anticipating insurance going up, that kind of thing, and how much. But I generally have like $10,000 or $15,000 figured in there just in case the insurance goes up, and that's the most it's ever gone up in 1 year jump.
Yeah.
And then if I don't use it, then I can use it for other things.
Well, and you brought up a really good point that I hadn't talked about yet. When developing the budget, having historic data, so having the actuals from the last 5 years, and then you can take those, you know, so say this is 2018, 2019, 2020, 2020, whoops, 21, and then we can go to 2017. You can average all of those. So say it was whatever this is, let's say utilities. It went from 100 to 150 to 75 to, when did we have, that was February 2020, right? So 300 for the cold February. And then this year it's been back to, you know, it's been like 200. So then we can average that. We can average all those numbers. And we can say, oh, well, the average from the last 5 years of utilities bills is about $165. Last year was 200. I think I'll probably budget 200 again. You know, so that looking at that historic data for things can help you make a decision and help your board make a decision, because then this is going to be actual money. How much did we actually spend in 2017? How much did we actually spend in 2018? Okay. Oh, that was just you. Okay. Diane, yes. Or is that a hand up from before? I guess maybe from before. Any
So
other?
I have a question about this.
Yes.
Because if we look at historical data, that makes perfect sense to me. However, how are we supposed to figure in COVID and closures? And that will make a big difference in what our averages look like. So how do we
I would-
deal with?
Yeah, I would look very closely at 2019. 2019 was our last normal year. And I mean, even with COVID, some things like utilities have gone up. But I would do a comparison of 2019 as your benchmark, as this is the last normal year we had. Normal. And then again, it's a decision-making process. You know, this was the average, but that's not the number that I went with. I'm using, you know, I'm taking other things into consideration, going, oh, I want to bump that up a little bit. And again, remember, you estimate your income low and your expenses a little bit high. And look and yes, compared to 2019, that looks crazy off, but I'm looking more at gas prices and other issues. But so maybe salaries. Oops. So maybe you had two people, this is, I use round numbers. You had 2 people, but then somebody quit and the board said, nope, we don't have the money, or we're not open enough hours, or we're not busy enough to justify rehiring for that position. Then you have, this is where you're going to negotiate. Sorry, I got something in my eye. This is where you're going to negotiate with the board, or this is where you're going to make a recommendation to the board to say, it's getting busy enough now at the library. We need to go back to normal. So we need to increase this budget line, you know, even though we need to increase this budget line back to 500. Okay, so that's part of the reason we get paid the big bucks. We need to be able to look at these numbers and make educated guesses about the future. So Laura always says the crystal ball, we need the crystal ball, and it's kind of true. But again, that's why, as far as the state, your budget is a hope and dream. Your estimates are, yeah, it's our best guess, and it's only the actuals that matter. So
In terms of things like books and DVDs, would you suggest that we keep that consistent and not look at those COVID numbers when we talk about purchasing in the future? Because my board questioned that recently, and you know, rightly so.
well, so let me read between the lines. Because you're having fewer people coming in the building, your circulation has gone down.
Absolutely.
And so they don't see a need for maintaining the collection.
Yes, they don't think that, or some don't. I shouldn't characterize all of them, but some think, well, we can spend less for materials then.
I would counter that with when things do come back to normal, which they will, your community is still going to expect an up-to-date and well-maintained collection. And if you are missing, you know, I'm a JD Robb reader. If you're missing the last 4 books because you didn't buy any of her, you know, the 2 that she put out in 2020 and the 2 that she put out in 2021, then you've got a big old gap in your collection. You can, I think, and should look at use patterns. Just like we had to make the decisions of when do we get away from VHS, I think we're eventually going to get to the decision of when do we reduce our DVD budget, and when do we get away from DVDs because maybe more people are streaming, they're taking more advantage of Hoopla. Is your income also going down? Are they just, are they, do you have a mill levy cap? Are you feeling poor at the moment? What's driving this decision to try to cut your book budget?
I'm not 100% sure, because no, we're doing fine financially right now.
Okay,
We are having additional money being spent because of issues with the previous treasurer and having to get all of that squared away. So we had to hire H&R Block to
gotcha.
go back and yeah, so there are a few things that were not planned for.
Yeah, so that's a temporary setback. So are
Except that-
they, yeah,
Except that the amount for materials monthly is the amount yearly that they plan to pay H&R Block from here on out, and took a lot of responsibilities away from the treasurer.
but then they didn't so you need to increase your budget. So is what it sounds like. You have a new expense, and it's a new expense that is demanded by the situation. You know, your board is being responsible and adding this additional expense because of issues that you had, and it's absolutely a business expense. It's an acceptable expense, and I think it would be, I think that they should, instead of tighten their belt, you need to add, that's something that the tax supporters, the taxpayers could pay for. I mean, that would be a completely legit reason to increase your tax rate and increase the amount of money that you're saying that you need to run the library.
Okay, thanks.
I would also point the board at those state standards. That's part of the reason they're there, is to give a little bit of oomph to the argument that we need to try to spend at least 12% of our budget on books, because books are fundamental to what we do.
Yes, they are well aware of the state standards. They each have a copy, and the president knows the 12%. They know those numbers. So anyway, but they were wanting to cut that 12% to pay for the.
I wouldn't don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Not on that. That's just what's that other cliche? Don't cut your nose off to spite your face, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And because it's a new expense, but it's a new expense to show that you're being good stewards of the taxpayer money. Throw a little taxpayer money at it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's one of those situations nobody wants to have to go through. Okay. Let's see. So we started, when did we start? 8:30? So it's been an hour. Do you guys have other questions or that you want to ask? Not yet.
You have a generic Excel spreadsheet that you can send us that we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm excited about doing that.
Okay. And I can do it both ways. I can do it as Excel, or I can do it as Excel. I can do it as Google, or I can do it as Excel, or I can do it as both. Actually, I'll probably just do it as both, and you guys can use whichever one makes you more comfortable. I will probably also type out what the formulas are, because they just make your life a lot easier. You know, like how to divide by 12 to get a monthly, how to divide by 4 to get a quarterly. And I probably will I'll run some of these by other people, because other people know Excel much better than I do. I'm kind of old fashioned in how I do my math. But we'll put together a sample, but I guess it'd be a sample budget workbook that will hopefully help you develop your budget. And we can highlight those parts that are your taxing authority would be interested in. And for the district budgets, that's everything, but for everybody else, it's just, you know, we'll highlight these 3 things. And then the income that is associated with that is usually salaries. You want to think about your tax money should go to those things that you can't run the library without. So people and books. And your allocation can go to whatever's left over. So books and programs and utilities and some of those other things that you need to run the library. And if you do need to cut something, usually the first thing that gets cut is programs. And the second thing that gets cut is you live with your technology another year. And the third thing that gets, you know, some things you don't want to have to cut, but and that the other, if you do have a change in the budget and maybe you do have a cap and you can't ask for more money from your funding entity, you can't get more money in taxes, then we need to talk about fundraising, and we need to talk about annual appeals, and maybe not book sales, bake sales. I hate that we have to do, you know, book sales to make money, but getting creative. I know Fredonia is very creative in how they make extra money. And so fundraising is something that we can talk about maybe in a future finance interest group. So, but this will be fun. I'll have fun working on this, and I'll probably end up using it for Iola as well. So I guess since this is, yeah, are you guys finding this useful? Do we need to my idea was to do this, what were we thinking, Amy? Not once a month, but maybe once a quarter or every other month. I don't remember. But we'll, and I think she sent out a that request, so we can talk about this more often. My words have escaped me. Oh, she had to go to the doctor. This thing, help us decide when to hold the February. Oh, we are doing it monthly. Okay, cool. We'll do it monthly. I'm fine with that. And fill out our little poll, and we'll get it set up. And I will put on my to-do list to get the sample workbook ready for you guys. And if you want me to look at your any of your documents, if you want to have us look at your financial reports or your budget documents or anything like that, let me know, or just send them to me and say, hey, please review, and I can do that. My parting from looking at everybody's budgets as part of allocation, my parting words will be, make sure that your expenses match your income so that you have a balanced budget. So if you're estimating that you're going to get 5,000 in income, make sure that your expenses add up to 5,000. It just looks good, and it shows your taxpayers that you are actually asking for exactly what you need to run the library, and you're not going to try to make money. Okay, so. All righty. If you can come up with another 15 minutes worth of stuff to talk about, we could go to an hour and a half and get another 0.25 credit. But anyway, I want to say thank you for spending time with me. I have fun doing these kinds of things. And if you have any other questions, or as you think about things, shoot us an email and we will help.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I thought that covered everything. I'm looking. Yeah, consolidate bank accounts. If I can have multiple accounts, I might do that too. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. There we go.